Hi, I'm Seth Marlowe. I wrote a book called Pathbreaker Parenting. In this 15-minute video, I hope to inspire you to really get motivated to do something about a significant and worsening problem in our community and society at large. So I need to quickly introduce you to my family. My wife, Donna, and I raised two daughters, Lauren there on the left, who is now 26, and Brooke on the right, who is now 24. The reason I needed to introduce you is you'll hear from Brooke and Lauren a few times in these 15 minutes. Almost 20 years ago, this picture was taken the day I taught Brooke how to ride a bike. Here's a video I recorded that day. Brooke, what'd you just learn how to do?
Running front chain wheel.
Woo! Only on the first lap, right?
Yes.
First time around, she knew how to do it.
Yes.
She's excited.
Yes.
All right, we'll show this to Mommy when we get back.
Okay. Okay, Daddy, I'm ready. I'm ready doing my bike now. I'm ready to get on my bike now, Daddy.
You ready?
Yeah. Come on.
So for obvious reasons, that video is one of my and Donna's favorites. We've watched it more times than I could count. But why did I show you that video? And what does it have to do with this problem that I'm saying is significant worsening? Well, several years after that video was recorded, we were watching it for the umpteenth time, and it hit me. I couldn't recall the last time Brooke or Lauren expressed that kind of unbridled joy about just about anything. And that is the beginning of the problem I'm hoping you will get motivated to think about and solve. As kids transition into their teen years, joy and fascination are increasingly replaced with stress, anxiety, and fear about their future. Now, the common response is, well, that's part of it, the deal, right? That's part of moodiness and puberty and moving into tween and teen years. But honestly, we're in the midst of a major mental health crisis because our tweens and teens are more anxious, stressed, and depressed than ever. What I often hear is, sure, it's a bit obvious that kids today are maybe more stressed out and anxious, and achievement culture's kind of out of hand, and maybe the cost of college is hard to understand if it's worth the cost, and et cetera. But it seems like it's viewed as, quote, the price to pay if you want a shot at ultimate success and happiness as an adult. And this line of thinking is driven by a widely accepted path that every kid is told must be followed. They must excel academically and accumulate as many achievements and credentials as possible. And in parallel, they must decide what they will be as an adult. Why? Because all of that is required to be accepted by a brand name college. You must present yourself as outstanding and polished and driven because those colleges are highly competitive. And why must you be picked by a brand name college? Well, because a degree from a brand name college, well, that's like a master key. It unlocks all doors. And once you have this master key, you will find financial success and stability, and then you will be happy. This is why this problem goes far beyond moodiness and puberty. Our kids have become obsessed with getting good grades, accumulating credentials, and choosing a career, and the pressure is chewing them up. But the problem isn't just about the mental health crisis with kids. The problem is worsening as they transition into young adulthood. What they endured for the better part of a decade or more, that wasn't a price they paid that ensured a great outcome. Increasingly, it's a price that is bankrupting our young adults financially, mentally, and emotionally. Our problem is that stressed and high anxiety teens are becoming timid and disillusioned young adults, wholly unprepared to navigate a dynamic and unforgiving world. So, what is the impact on our community and society when half or more of our young adults feel directionless, lonely, and stuck? And what happens if we don't do something about this? So, now that I've thoroughly depressed you, let's pivot to hope and positivity, and we're going to stay there for the rest of this video. There is a solution to this problem. My book is titled Pathbreaker Parenting because I became convinced almost 20 years ago when Brooke and Lauren were in elementary school that this linear, formulaic path and all of the stress, anxiety, and cost it demands was no longer required. I became convinced that middle and high school students do not need to stress over grades and achievements. They do not need to decide what they want to be. They do not need to be accepted by a brand name college, or any college for that matter, and they do not need to view their future with such fear and trepidation. And because I believed that, our daughters, Brooke and Lauren, didn't check any of the boxes that the path demands. They didn't win any academic awards. They weren't elected to any leadership positions. They didn't do things to improve their chance of getting into a college. They exited high school without any colored tassels hanging from their caps or achievement pins on their graduation gowns. And in every way that society judges teens, they were completely unremarkable. And then after high school, combined, they completed one semester of college. So, what happens when you do none of the things everyone insists are required for success and happiness as an adult?
I've observed you both as thriving. You're thriving young adults. What does that mean to you?
Self-love. I don't know. Like,
Yes, that's pretty much what I was going to say. It's going to bed every day feeling fulfilled with the day that you've had and waking up excited to take on the next.
not finding your identity in just your career. That is such a terrible mistake our generation makes, is putting our worth in how much money we make or what our job title is. And it's so off.
Finding new hobbies that fulfill you and make you challenge you to try new things. For instance, I took on cooking, and that's just been something that has changed my life drastically.
I had someone ask me recently, they were like, if you could change anything about your life, like, what would you change? I wouldn't change anything drastically. Like, I wouldn't change my job. Like, even if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would still work where I work because I love it. It's fun. And I love who I work with. And I love what I do. And I love where I live. I love my friends.
Yeah, I've just found so many departments that fulfill me, just not just within my work and my career. It's important to find things outside of that make you happy and, fulfill you every single day.
Happiness is the lack of desire and just being happy with what you have. And if you're not happy, then change it. Have that courage to make the steps you need to change what you're not happy about, whether that's your weight or, a toxic friendship or whatever it is that's holding you back from being your truest, happiest, most thriving self.
So, as a dad, I couldn't have been happier to hear each of them start their answer with the same two words: self love. When you aren't maniacally chasing grades and awards and credentials, you get to instead spend a lot of time focused on one critical thing. You unlock self directed thriving centered on self love. You're not fixated on money, job titles, or meeting the expectations of others. You don't carry any burden of sunk costs invested over a decade or more, and you don't allow yourself to get stuck doing something you hate because you went all in on it 10 years earlier. Self directed thriving means you lean into the simplicity of conducting activities that challenge you and lead to fulfillment. You continuously try new things instead of building your identity around a job, and you don't allow yourself to get stuck because you confidently change what isn't working. All right, I know I probably sound a bit like a snake oil salesman right now. Am I really suggesting that a child can just coast through their teen years, accomplish nothing, skip college, have no plan for a career, and then magically thrive as a young adult? No, that's not at all what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is that instead of relentlessly pressuring kids to obsess over grades, achievements, and getting a job they'll supposedly do for 40 years, mentor and guide them to invest their time, energy, and yes, money very differently. If we want our teenagers to become thriving young adults in a dynamic and unforgiving world, we must enable and empower them to thrive. The last 80 pages of my book focuses on exactly this. I dedicate a chapter to each of these bubbles and share the actual conversations we held with Brooke and Lauren throughout middle school, high school, and into early adulthood. For example,
what was the perspective about careers? But like, how did that conversation change as you all talked about what comes next after high school?
Like, they never asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? There was not that pressure of trying to figure it out. Like, hey, what do you want to do in 10 years? Like, how are you supposed to know that? I haven't even paid a single tax yet. Like, I don't know how the world works. I think it was less of the, let's figure out what you want to do and more of, what do you want to try first?
I feel like that's just kind of helped me live in the moment and, live a steady, happy life and not having the pressure from my parents through middle school and high school all the time asking me what I want to do, or, you need to find something. You're 18 years old. You're about to be at that age where you're really needing to start your career and live on your own. Not having that pressure has just given me freedom to try out new things and learn how to do things that I love and figure out ways to make a living doing that.
In that short clip, each of them touched on 3 of these bubbles: do what makes you feel accomplished, find your game, and try before you buy. So while everyone else was stressing out about achievements and credentials, they were quietly learning how to implement these concepts in their lives. And here's one more example.
At one point, I remember being a freshman in high school. Why do we sit in rows? Why are there bells? Like, why do we have to raise our hands? Like, figuring out like why that happens, and you realize you're like, maybe that's not the right way to go about learning. And then I'm like, okay, so if that may not be the right way to go about learning, then what is? And how can I find my best way of learning? And also how can I get the most enjoyment out of learning? I fell in love with learning the way I wanted to learn from that point. And yeah, I mean, from age 15, I knew I was going to create my own path. I think one thing me and Brooke can really relate on is the same feeling she had of I need to drop out of college. We followed our gut. Mm-hmm. Trusting your own intuition and feeling confident in your own decisions is crucial. Mm-hmm.
So in that clip, Lauren talked about self-directed learning and expectation setting. When you're not pressured to excel while learning is being done to you, as Lauren said, you get to fall in love with learning the way you want to learn. So those are a couple of examples of how path breaking manifests in the mind of a young adult who is thriving. And the last piece of the puzzle I'll share is that thriving is only possible if a core foundation is in place, a growth mindset. If you don't read my book, please read Carol Dweck's game-changing book called Mindset. Then convince every person you know to read it. Everyone in our family read Mindset, and it was foundational to each of us finding our own version of thriving. This is why I dedicate an entire section of Pathbreaker Parenting to building a growth mindset within yourself and within any child you want to empower to thrive. I focus a lot on this because the path tends to form a fixed mindset as kids focus on looking smart, staying in their lane, and avoiding criticism. And the rise of social media has significantly worsened the last highlighted row. They grow up feeling threatened by the success of others. When kids transition into young adulthood with a fixed mindset, they quickly become overwhelmed because the world changed dramatically in less than a generation. The internet and globalization changed everything. When kids are relentlessly implored to excel in a now obsolete, mass industrialized education system and pick a career they'll supposedly do for decades, they're being set up to fail. And I strongly believe this is what's leading to those terrible statistics I shared earlier about mental health in our young adults. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. With a vibrant growth mindset in place, anyone can learn how to thrive in today's world. One last thing I'll address, the most frequently asked question I get, or to be blunt, what everyone most pushes back on. Happiness and fulfillment are great, but at some point, a young adult must land a job and make money, right? And the fact is, a high percentage of the best paying jobs and promotions require, quote, a college degree. So I'm constantly told, Seth, I get what you're saying, but it seems like you're ignoring this really important fact. I don't ignore it, and I address it in 3 ways. First, you might have noticed that one of the chapters in the growth mindset section of the book is titled Averages Do Not Apply to Individuals. Several readers have told me it's one of their favorite chapters. In short, we shared and discussed lots of articles like this with Brooke and Lauren while teaching them the simple concept that there's no such thing as an average that applies to them as an individual human being. It's a topic I could discuss for hours, but that's the first response I have to this pushback. My second response is that everyone is choosing to believe a lie. This is the actual job description for the role Lauren applied to and landed at United Airlines at age 23. The first requirement listed was a bachelor's degree, preferably in a relevant field. Well, Lauren never spent a minute in a college classroom, so how did she advance through a 5-stage interview process at a Fortune 100 size company and land a high-paying job in a lucrative career when she failed to secure the, quote, required credential? Again, I could discuss this for hours, and I write extensively about it in the book. But in short, our daughters were taught not to believe the lie that human beings who hire and promote other human beings care about a certificate hanging on a wall. And my third response is to share studies like this one that demonstrate how dramatically the job market has changed in less than 10 years. In this study, 4 college graduates with polished credentials and perfectly formatted resumes applied to 311 entry-level positions. 294 of the 311 applications, 95%, never even got out of the blocks. They either got no response or were told the position was already filled. Of the 17 that resulted in interest, only 5 resulted in an actual interview. 2% of 311 applications got to just the first step of the process. And of those 5 scheduled interviews, 0 job offers. This isn't an example of an average. This is how job markets work today. As mentioned before, the internet and globalization flatten the world, and you now compete globally against everyone who has the same credentials as you. And that is why a college degree carries little to no value for many college graduates. So that's it. I hope this video is interesting. If you enjoyed it, I welcome feedback or questions. You can email me at seth@pathbreakerparenting.com, and you can go to the website at pathbreakerparenting.com to learn more, to buy the book, to read the blog, and to communicate with me. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.